No, that's all. Thanks.
Okay. Alan, how's it going? What's new?
Yep, no deployments for us either. Just boring operational work on the ones that we have, but keeping us pretty busy.
Well, that can be interesting too.
Yeah. And as you know, I did put in a couple of, or I'm drafting a couple of pull requests for Gen3 Terraform. I actually did some stuff already that was merged. Thank you to the team very quickly for Gen3 Helm. Some helpful stuff, just little odds and ends. But on the Gen3 Terraform and Gen3 Helm, I guess both, just trying to enable well, not multi, but different region deployments because there was some hard coding of US East 1 in one or two places, which I learned the hard way, trying to deploy to a different region. It does not work. So I'm doing some testing, and when that's complete, I'll turn those drafts into actual PRs, and then hopefully everyone can take a look.
Was that in the Terraform, right? Or in Helm? I feel like that would be
Both.
really
I think it was both. I actually don't quote me on that. For
okay.
sure, Gen3 Terraform.
Hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd be
I think.
interested.
I'm honestly questioning myself now, but I thought there was some issues with both,
Yeah, I thought we'd
but
fixed it in Terraform as well, but yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for finding those and surfacing them up. It'll be nice to see. We don't usually
yeah,
deploy outside of US East 1, so
yeah,
it doesn't bubble up for us.
yeah. Exactly. That's what I figured, and you're not alone in that. But I was doing some testing one day, and it's like, why is this not working? And then I found out why. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, just give us a signal when you think those are ready to
I
for us to
will.
take a
I
look at.
will. Yeah, hope to get to that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Back to Mir. You're up next. What's new?
Um, Nothing much for the most part. Just we're having issues with the Cilium, I guess.
Mm,
And yeah, I'm still working with the AJO on that. So yeah, other than that, nothing new.
okay. Jawad, are you plugged into that? Do you have any follow-up questions on that?
No, not exactly related to that. Is that the Helm deployment, right? Or the Helm migration?
That's after the Helm migration, just like switching from Calico to the Cilium for networking.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, I am aware of that. Yep. And yeah.
Okay. Sounds like yeah, Ajo's on it, but yeah.
Yep. Other than that, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, back to Mir. Kyle, long time no see. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Fine.
So yeah, we've been going a bit more experimental in terms of some of our stuff. Again, trying to support more of online analytics, i.e., analysts in an active project sharing files. Um, I can talk about it later, but we've plugged into a system based off of the Git LFS pattern, but using DIRS as the primary interface. So people can basically track the current repository and all the objects as a GitHub project, and then the client will basically just contact Gen3 to download the objects as needed using the SHA pointers that exist in the GitHub file. This put us pretty far ahead of the capabilities of you know the existing DIR server in Gen3.
Mm-hmm.
And also because we're specing this off of what is currently being proposed for Gen 3, was it GA4GH DIRS 1.6, which will be adding rate capabilities. So we tried to take your guys' code as far as we could, but because we're making so many changes, we ended up creating a new repository. So we have plugged in a new DIRS server called Siphon into Gen3. I put in the URL for the Git repository there. So we're going to try to keep this tracked with GA4GH 1.6. I'm sorry, GA4GH DIRS 1.6 once it's released. It's still being revised, but ideally it should be compliant when that comes out, and compatible with read-write actions. So you could write objects into the Gen3 managed system.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're just getting up to 1.5 for ourselves for Gen3.
Is this equivalent to, or at least parts of Index D, right?
Yeah, basically, our issue had, I think you had already seen that we had to include some RBAC related patches into Index D because we needed project level management of all file listing. So like if you didn't have access to a project, you shouldn't even be able to list the files as an option. That PR was still outstanding, I believe. So this just stacks on top of that, or would have stacked on top of that. So we decided to switch over and just completely. So this also takes care of the URL signing that Fence would do as well, because it's kind of part and parcel. So yeah, it implements the full DIRS stack. Because I know that some of the URL signing wasn't done in IndexD, but rather mapped back to Fence. So there's this weird sort of bifurcation of responsibilities. This kind of pulls it all together into one thing. So it does both the listing of all the files, the URL signing, as well as managing addition of new records. I think we also put in some management stuff that's not part of the official GA4GH spec, mainly because we needed to kind of do some auth management. We're going to also probably add in some APIs related to file stats tracking, how many different files are in any given project as an API call.
Awesome. And I love that it's written in Go. That's my favorite language.
Yeah, if we had to, again, that was the other thing, was just like switched it over to Go just because it makes
Much better
performance
performance.
testing so much easier.
Yeah. Also, I've noticed like when you're developing with agents, Go is such a beautiful language to develop with.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the things that was able to kind of move this forward quickly, is that we were able to engage with a lot of agentic code to kind of get a lot of the rote stuff basically knocked out of the way, because a lot of this is just like take the open API generated or template from GA4GH, develop the code base behind it. We have an existing set of examples within IndexD and Fence. So it's a fixed set of functions that were pretty well defined. It's nothing that, nothing novel, mainly just putting it together in a singular package rather than having it, again, spread in between Fence and IndexD, and again, adding in the right functions.
Yep. Are you guys using any HTTP servers, or just doing the very basic HTTP client that Go exposes?
I would actually have to check on that.
Yeah. For example, for the CSOC portal, I use something called Gen, but
I think that's what we were using, actually. I need to double check if that's where it landed. I know that one of the early prototypes was using that. I don't know if that got refactored out. But yeah, I think we were on Gen for a bit. Oh, wait, no, I think the problem was, I think the Open API generator has a couple of different output compilers, and the Gen one that will take Open API code and make it Gen compatible didn't have I think the correct set of options. Like it had less options than just the generic Go generator.
Yep.
So I think that was maybe the deciding factor why we might have factored out the Gen stuff. Is
That
it
makes
just
sense. I feel like I've ran into that before myself and just gave up on the OpenAPI spec for personal stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're trying to make sure that this
Yep.
can pace with GA4GH rapidly. So we were very kind of strict about making sure we actually used the OpenAPI generated code.
Yep, that makes sense.
All right. Kyle, just quickly, does this manifest in a production system somewhere yet, or is
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay. All right. I forget if you've probably sent this to me before. What system is that? Is this the Night Center?
No, we've moved it out of, I mean, there's an internal one. It's not branded as Night right now.
Okay. Sorry. Then is there a public link that we could post somewhere?
I mean, I have I have the software site. Which is not the actual server, but just the deployment that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We've calling it Caliper.
Can we post this on our site somewhere?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I will do that and let you know when that happens. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, cool. We have more people joining too. Carvin, what's new?
Yeah, for us, these days, I'm exploring how to use the CSOC platform, and yeah, I have deployed it into a VM, and deployed a Gen3 instance. Use it. Okay, I'm now trying to figure out yeah, the Gen3 instance deployed by the CSOC. Because there are some problems about the database. I see that it didn't create the tables based on our dictionary, corresponding with our dictionary. It seems still use some original table in the database. So the Gen3 the Gen3 feature is not totally can be tested in the in a CSOC platform. So I'm trying to figure out that. That's one thing. Another thing is that I'm testing the front-end framework to see if in the future we'll use front-end framework to replace the portal. Yeah. And the feature, but I didn't find the feature to manage the data in the UI, the project list, the project graph node, and data management. So I want to figure out that get confirmation if if the front end framework can replace the portal in this data management. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, that's my progress. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I know the front-end framework continues to add new features. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Sarah says she'll have a response this afternoon, Carvin. I think there's an active discussion in the Gen3 community channel. So
Okay.
cool. And Stefan from OCC, do you have any updates you want to share with the group?
Nothing from me. I don't think that OCC has any new updates Gen3 wise. We are looking at specific ways to have like identity providers and do governance and payment on our side, but nothing that we're prepared to share yet.
Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, I think that's everybody. Off to you, Jawad. Hopefully we have enough time still for the walkthrough.
I'll talk in 2x speed. No. Thank you, Michael. All right. So for today's workshop, I'm going to basically run run the entirety of Gen3 with the CSOC in Google Cloud. But this is also an intro to something we've talked about before called the Gen3 Lite, where we have a cost-effective way of running Gen3 in the cloud because when we run a full-blown production environment that is meant to be super scalable and handle high volume of traffic, that model may not fit everyone. So we've talked about a single instance Gen3 Lite or self-managed Kubernetes. Doesn't have to be single instance. You can do multiple, but for this workshop, we're going to do just a single instance. Yeah. The price of something like this, if you wanted to run this yourself, would be about $250 a month. And you can scale up and down as well. But instead of scaling a Kubernetes cluster, you just scale the VM or the single instance of whatever that's going to run it. For the underlying Kubernetes infrastructure, we will be using something called K3s. So K3s is a lightweight Kubernetes offering by Rancher, which is actually super awesome. And I mentioned you can do a single instance, but with K3s, you can have multiple nodes as well. You usually just self-manage this, or you can do it through the Rancher application as well. Yeah, going back to this today, we will set up the CSOC portal itself along with Keycloak. So that's going to run in a separate namespace within our cluster or single Kubernetes instance with Keycloak and a Postgres database, CSOC portal itself. And then on that single VM, you can spin up 2, 3, 4 Gen3 instances. Yeah, so if you just want to run a super lightweight instance of the CSOC with multiple Gen3s, I'm going to demonstrate that you can. So last time we basically did it on laptop, and this time we're going to go in Google Cloud. So I sent out an email yesterday asking if people can get access to a Google Cloud account. I wanted to share our account, but I wasn't able to do all the stuff in time. So instead, you guys can follow me along if you don't have a Google account. But this is basically just a test account we have. And this is my other test instance, but we can basically go through the steps that are required to get started. So we can hit this create instance button and we can give it a name. For this one, I'm going to call it the CSOC Workshop Gen 3. We can choose a zone right in the UI here, or the region in a zone. And then here is where we can basically select the different types of instances. Even the most basic one that costs $25 a month, I imagine it'll be enough for lightweight Gen 3s, although you only get 2 CPUs and 4 gigs of memory, which isn't too much. So since we're going to spin up a few Gen 3s, I was thinking we could go for a 8 gig and 32 gig instance, which on this you should be able to run about 3 or 4, maybe even more Gen 3 instances kind of comfortably, depending on your traffic patterns. Already now we see it's still less than $200. One other thing that we need to change is just this disk space. I usually just put it 100 gigs. One more thing is we need to allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic. And that's about it. We can hit the create button and it starts spinning up this instance for us. Once it spins up, it'll give us a magic SSH button that we can click. And hopefully I've shared my screen in the right way. I actually haven't, so I'm gonna stop and reshare. Let me do this. Okay, let me also do this then. Ooh. Okay. Cool. So now we have a magic SSH button, and it'll open up this new window for us where we'll get a SSH session going into this box that we just created. So now is always the hard part. Like after you have a blank canvas in the cloud, what do you do? And just like last time, I've prepared a script. It's called setup K3S, and this is what we will be running. Here, I've just opened it up by clicking this raw button. But what we are going to do is we're going to take this script, take this raw link, go back into our instance, and all we need to do is pipe it in here. We could also wget it and run it if you want to inspect it. For the purpose of now, I'm just going to curl that script and pipe it to bash. And it will give us 5 seconds of runway before we can cancel it, but then it'll start installing all the things that we basically require.
If people are following along, Jawad, do you want to share that URL to the script?
Yes, I can. So let me do that. Should I share it in the chat?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense here.
Yep. And I can also take a break. Are people kind of following along and trying to do this at the same time? Okay. Let's see. So now I'm just gonna have to run it again, I think. Should have gone through, but I also installed K9S last minute, so okay. So it is going through. It did clone it, and I'm so used to just being able to open a new terminal, but right now I'm not able to. Wonder if I can open two SSH. Never mind. Let's not. Just in case. But yeah, what's going on right now? It installed Helm, it installed K3S, it installed kubectl or kubectl, kube control, and then it also installed the operator for both running Postgres instances and Keycloak itself. So it's also configuring and installing Keycloak as well. One thing that I wanted to do for security, I'm going to switch back into that whiteboard, and I think we had it up here a second ago before I removed it. And of course, it's gone. Here it is. It's an IP allow list. Since both CSOC and Keycloak are admin interfaces, I don't like having them just be out in the open for anyone to access, because when you do cloud deployments, it's no longer local, and if you need to access it, you have to go through at least basically you have to go through the internet. I've also added in a feature where you can give it some IPs and it will whitelist them for you. I will also share how it works. So when you deploy with K3S, the ingress controller that gets deployed that basically controls traffic into the cluster is something called traffic, but spelled really exotically, like this. And traffic has middleware as CRDs that we're going to take a look at in a second, and how like the default access doesn't give you anything, shows you just forbidden unless you have an IP that is in this rule. Yeah. So basically, CSOC and Keycloak will not be exposed to the internet, just to specific IPs, but all these Gen3s can be publicly available, running on the same single instance. Make this bigger, maybe. Can go over like all of the things that are happening here, maybe. It's not super interesting. Yeah, Keycloak, Cloud Native PG. Something that I want to work on with my team, and I think I've mentioned that before as well, is getting more Gen3 native support in our Helm charts. for cloud native PG. This, even in a single instance like we are running today, gives you more of a managed Postgres experience, which is kind of nice. And you can even do backups, point-in-time recovery to object storage and stuff. So even if your instance goes poof, that you won't have data loss. For the current model, though, I do recommend doing snapshots, automated snapshots of this instance if this is a model that you guys want to run in production. Just in case something goes wrong with the instance itself, you'll always be able to recover back. Okay, looks like Keycloak itself is semi-healthy, and now we're just waiting for CSOC to come up. And I know since last time, Alan, you actually ported the Minikube script into a Windows node. That, I don't know if I wanted to run a Windows node in production, but that would be kind of cool if you wanted to convert the K3s script into a PowerShell script as well. Okay.
So the K3S is more recommended now than the Minikube.
Minikube doesn't work in a cloud scenario. Minikube doesn't expose traffic externally, so you can only access it when it's running on your laptop. So Minikube sets up like a different network, and you still have to do all the connectivity basically to expose it to the rest of the world. But it's very convenient, and you have to install less things when you're doing it on your laptop. If you're going to deploy it into the cloud, K3S is, in my view, a little bit easier to work with. There's just less configuration to expose things out to the internet.
Okay, thank you. I will redeploy my instance with the K3S.
Yep. Another thing that our security team recommended that I was going to set up, but I wasn't able to do it in time, so I can't share these instances. But if you are doing this, it's a strong recommendation to install fail to ban, because the moment you start exposing SSH ports to the internet, you're gonna be scanned and people are going to try to SSH into it. Fail to ban gives you basically 1 or 2 attempts to SSH in, then you get your IP gets into a jail. And if you fail too many times, you won't get out of jail and you won't be able to SSH in. For this, I did not expose any ports. We're using the SSH from the Google terminal. That's why it's happening in a browser. But fail to ban is highly recommended if you're gonna run an instance like this. Maybe you're running it in a cloud that doesn't offer that nice SSH thing, and you have to SSH it manually. This is very cheap insurance. We also run our XDR, which is antivirus type of deal on these instances. So that's something that you have to remember, and also just applies all of the security patches and stuff that come out. Some cloud providers will do it for you. Others require you to set it up yourself. But there's some sysadmin stuff that I feel like I need to mention. Cool. Looks like things are deployed. So the next step is basically to be able to access these, I have to add this to my like MacBook's etc hosts file. So I'll open my regular terminal and we can replace this with this. So now this is the IP of my node that we saw here. We should see it at least. The external IP. So this is a real IP. So if anybody browses to this IP, they will hit your Ingress server. But the nice thing is that if you don't have the right host name set up, all you get is a 404 page not found. But now that I set up this in my host file, if I now try to curl CSOC cloud is just the host name that I set up. You'll see that the IP resolves to this. That's basically what this file is for. Same thing with Keycloak. If I try to go into Keycloak, you do get the same IP. But if you're following, you see this forbidden thing, and this is the allow list that I was talking about. So if I try to go to csoc.cloud right now, it won't let me. Because we need to whitelist my IPs. So this is sort of the security part that I kind of wanted to mention. So now I need to find my IP. I think this works. Yep. So you can curl ICANN has IP and it'll spit out your IP, and we will basically use it to whitelist. Okay. In the script, if you run it interactively, like if you check out the repository first and then you do go into the Gen3 admin and then you run bash scripts setup K3s, it will ask you for your IP and just whitelist you. But when I set up a new instance, Git isn't installed and I was too lazy to install it. So I'll rather show you guys how this IP whitelisting is happening in the backend. So I feel like most of us are used to K9s now. If you browse all the custom resource definitions in your Kubernetes cluster, you will see something called middlewares. So this is by traffic IO, and my script does set up the middleware. This is the IP allow list ones that we basically use. We can go into edit mode by hitting E. The default IP that has been whitelisted is just the node itself, so that whatever's running on this node can reach itself. And I gotta find the IP again. So this is my IP. So now we just gotta update this list and we add the other IP with /32, which just means this single one. Cool. I can exit out of this, and if I try to refresh this, ta-da, it'll let me in, and no one else. Just people from the IPs that were showing up earlier are allowed to hit CSOC and Keycloak. Cool. I did run into one like cookie thing that I was not able to solve. Like everything works up until this part in the cloud. Actually, it works. Okay, never mind. Maybe it was a transient error I was having. So now I'm able to log in with the admin user. If you wanted to, you can set up keycloak.cloud because this is not local. Yeah, if you wanted to, you can also set up Google Cloud integration and stuff. Yeah, it always gets hairy when you're dealing with auth and HTTPS. So the default password and username is admin. I recommend changing that as well. Yeah. But if you go in here, you can go into realms and there's a CSOC realm. In here, there is identity providers, and you can set up all your own identity providers if you want to. This is also a good plug if you ever want to use Keycloak for other things as well. And just as a pure identity provider, this would be how and where you would do it. I'm still waiting for the Keycloak people to allow us to control. Well, I think you can control some of this, but only on the initial one. You can't do updates through the operator. Sorry, because ideally we could control it just like this. We have a YAML to set up entirety of Keycloak, and we do set it up through the script. And then we have something called a realm import, I think. Let's see, CRD Keycloak. Yeah. So we do have something called Keycloak realm imports that sets up the entire realm for us. It's just the operator pattern hasn't been fully developed. So we do have to do some manual configuration still, which is in here. So if you wanted to set up Google login, you could. Same dance, get a client ID, client secret, set up this redirect URL on Google side. And instead of having to type in your username or the admin user, you would log in through Google. Okay, and this I feel like we did last time as well, but I can go over it again. So this is basically the server agent architecture. It'll deploy an agent to itself so that we can control the Kubernetes cluster from this portal. And then it'll start deploying it. Maybe to make this a little bit more interactive, we can do something like this, and we will see all the pods in real time. Okay, so it set up the CSOC agent for us now. We'll do install Argo CD, and through this agent, it'll start installing Argo CD in about a second now. We see the Argo CD pods coming up. This, I believe, is just a regular Helm install. But yeah, as these components get healthy, it'll also start reflecting here in the dashboard. Oh, log the sound. Interesting. Okay, and now what's happening is we will just deploy the monitoring stack. It'll deploy Loki and Grafana and stuff. And we can just hit that button. This one is created through Argo CD. So Argo CD application gets created with all the values, and then it starts deploying Loki and actually just Loki for now. I always think it's cool with all the orchestration of this. Just a few years ago, this would be kind of unheard of to be able to see and do this, but that's the beauty of Kubernetes and how like stable it's become. So now we're deploying Alloy. So Alloy is the log collector and metrics collector from all of the pods in the cluster and forwards it to the Loki that we just deployed. And Loki persists the logs, so even after a pod restarts and stuff, you can still get all the logs from it. Let's see.
The tracing features is included in the tracing.
Not in this version, but I can include them. So we are working on Pyroscope. That's a good question. So Pyroscope is the Grafana's tracing aspects, and then you get flame graph of all the requests that are going through. I wouldn't probably enable this by default, but at least if you're troubleshooting a specific issue, we can have something in our Helm charts that tells Alloy, hey, we have traces. Do you want traces? And then Alloy goes in and grabs these traces and forwards it to Pyroscope. Here you can see like exactly which function took what long, what was he waiting for? Was it a database call? Is it a network call? How much CPU and memory was it using and stuff like that. So it's very, very helpful to do tracing when troubleshooting memory leaks or CPU spikes or figuring out if your database is slow. This one basically just lays it out for you flat. So yeah, that's a great question. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, we don't do that
Mm.
yet, but it can. I think Alloy is set up to do it, but we don't deploy Pyroscope. Anyway, now we have a cluster we can deploy to, and this will be our first Gen 3 deployment into this cluster. Let's see, we keep everything just default, I guess. Here you can put in a Slack webhook URL as well if you want the built-in notifications thing from our Gen 3 services. This is the certificate source. For something like this, I would like or encourage certificate manager, although that requires real DNS and whatnot to set up, but this can basically issue you a real certificate and then also keep renewing it. Cert manager is great if you're doing Kubernetes deployments. You install cert manager and then you get custom resource definitions for certificates, and you can either connect your DNS to it or it can actually just hit that host name, and as long as you point the DNS at the IP that we had, this will just automatically give you real certificates, even if you're running it on a little machine running on your home lab. So highly recommend Cert Manager. Anyway, going back here, we can just leave it. We can call this one Gen 3 Cloud. I guess we can go back here because that is the thing we set up in the hosts file. Of course. Managed to hit the back button, so I have to do it all over again. Gen 3 Cloud. Only thing that I want to set up in this is set up some mock auth so that we were able to log in. And yeah, this will set up the first Gen 3 deployment. So as you see here, it's going in and deploying things. We should see a Gen 3 namespace pop up here as well, and start deploying services for us. Cool. So now that that one is deployed, we can refresh and just click Gen 3 here. Now this is the Gen 3 Clouds dashboard. We saw that last time as well. We get some live metrics and we can see the services get rolled out as well. Let me see. Yeah. So while this one is getting deployed, we can also go in here and we can do another deployment. And let's see, we do it in the same cluster, but we can call this one Gen 3 staging, for example, if you want a staging cluster. And the same dance again. We don't really do too much here, but we can call this Gen3 staging.cloud. Again, this can be whatever you have your domain to set to. But since we're kind of cheating here with the host file, it can be whatever. Then you have the databases. We already did that. Oh yeah, I kind of skipped over this module, but I showed this last time as well, where you can enable and disable different services depending on what your Gen 3 is going to do. Can do this and enable mock-auth again. Here's the same thing as Keycloak Google integration. All we need is a client ID and client secret, and then this redirect URL is something you would put back into Google's side. Give the index-d prefix, and then we can just deploy this one as well.
Will you specify the dictionary while deploy?
That's a global setting. So if you set the dictionary URL in here, it would update that in all services.
Yeah, the issue I'm admit is that yeah, the database seems does not create the tables based on my dictionary. I'm checking that. Yeah.
That can be a dictionary issue as well. We've seen that sometimes, at least with our dictionary tests. where it would be creating the wrong tables and stuff. I don't remember the root cause of it, but I'm happy to work with you on like figuring out why Sheepdog isn't creating the right tables, because it is interesting. But this is
Thank
where
you.
the URL should go at least. Okay, so now the staging cluster is also deployed, and it should update here in a second, and we can basically switch between the staging one and the regular one. Right now, since it's pulling a lot of these same images, it'll be a little slow, or at least CPU usage on the box will be quite high. But this settles down after a little bit, and yeah, you should be able to do more services as well. Now, this one we did not add to our host file, so we can basically go and do that now. Just add it to the same IP. And hopefully, if everything is set up correctly, we can go to Gen3 Cloud. We did not set up a real certificate, so we'll get this warning. And Gen3 staging.cloud should also bring up the other instance, which might still be coming up actually. So let's see, is Rev Proxy happy and front-end framework? Okay, yeah, so that should be giving us something. So here, even though they do look quite similar, we have multiple Gen3s here. I don't know if I showed this last time, but some of these like debugging features that I've added here as well. So for example, if okay, now they're all healthy. If I wanted to go and check what's up with index.d, like all the logs will be right here in this UI. We can also filter them for, just the select ones, and it'll give us the lines with just that line in it. It's really easy to kind of filter. And I see my Mac is about to die. Do I have a charger nearby? I actually don't. And there's a real shell. So this is running inside that single or that pod, and we can access it from here. Yeah. And if I wanted to go into the other deployment, the first one, we can, and I can go into, for example, Sheepdog, uh, look at the logs again, and do a shell into Sheepdog as well. Okay, yeah. Anyway, that was the thing for today. If you guys have been following along, I'm happy to help you get to this point as
How,
well now.
how about the Guppy, Elasticsearch and Guppy?
Um, I don't know if I deployed Elasticsearch and Guppy, so let's see. We can go into the Gen3 deployments, and we can edit, for example, staging. We want Elasticsearch and Guppy. So maybe we can do this. And
In,
I think that should
in the
enable.
database? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Oh, let's see, database page. This is, yeah. So it should be creating that for us. We can go back home. Um, and see if, yeah, Elasticsearch is already deployed, but since we didn't enable Guppy and we haven't run ETL yet, Guppy will just fail anyway. But we can just go in here and edit, and it'll bring us to the same wizard. We can go to the services we want to enable, can enable Guppy, and go to deploy, hit this update deployment, and then Guppy should be installed into staging basically once this Helm deployment finishes. But yeah, so if you go to the dashboard now, let me check staging, and Guppy should be coming up, but it won't because it doesn't have any indices to work with. It'll just sit there in a failed state. Anyway, another good question. Thank you.
Yeah, we have used the OpenSearch to replace the Elastic.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
open search image.
yeah, I don't know if that would work out of the box. But I know that's been talks about updating our dependencies and yeah,
Yeah, because the Elasticsearch OSS version is too old, more than 2 years or 3 years
yeah,
ago, and then based on the CentOS.
yeah.
So it has many vulnerabilities, and we can't fix it. So we find a replacement, you know,
That's
open
a
search image. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. Um, Yeah, there is one open search, like the initial open search version that should be compatible with Elasticsearch 7.10. But we haven't tested that. I think our developers just need to find bandwidth to be able to update the dependency on Elasticsearch. I would also love that because there's some new um, orchestration tools around the newer open search stuff that could be helpful. Sort of like an operator, similar pattern to Cloud Native PG. Um, yeah. Anyway, that was it from me this time, and I'm happy to field questions. And I see Gordon, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Just want to know if workspaces is supported with this deployment, or how does it work?
Um, Let me share my screen again. I still have 7%. Okay. So if you were to change this, so what happens behind the scene is just it's manipulating the YAML for the Helm charts. Basically, so this is just a UI on top of the Helm charts when we're doing this. So anything the Helm charts support, it would support it here as well. I've separated the workspaces and the workflow services in here. So there's a new Gen3 workflow service that is in, I guess, beta soon to be released in prod. But if you want to try it out, you can. But then you need Hatchery and Ambassador at the minimum. And then manifest service if you want to get file exports um, to your workspace. But you can just enable these. And if you hit the next button here, and again, you go into this per service configuration, and since we enabled Hatchery, it exposes this view, so you can add different containers that basically turns into the flavors uh, inside Gen3. So if you want like have less memory, less CPU, or another Jupyter image, or call it something else, you can. You can hit this add new container button, and it sort of exposes that for you. So now you have two different workspace containers or flavors to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And then here you would be able to see basically what all it's doing is it's just setting all these values in the YAML. So it's just a visual editor for our YAML files or the values YAML. Anyway, great question.
Thank you.
Alan, go ahead.
Okay, first, thank you for, as always, for all of this amazing stuff. Every time I see the admin, it's even better. And thank you specifically for showing this single VM deployment, because we've tried to do something similar in the past. Well, we have done something similar in the past for Jetstream, but it was not as elegant as this. So now I want to take what you've done with K3S and see if we can't get that working on Jetstream, which would be really cool. So thank you for sharing that. Two very quick questions. One, going back to Alloy, are you using Alloy now? Is that a straight up replacement for Fluent? I guess Fluent D or Fluent Bit?
So we use them for two different purposes.
Okay.
Alloy is sending all this stuff to Loki. We still run FluentBit and or maybe it's Fluent D,
Hmm.
But that one is just sending our logs to CloudWatch for compliance related long-term storage of things. So we store um, basically logs for I think it's 180 days or something in Loki, and then we start pruning. But in CloudWatch, for compliance reasons, we can keep them for 10 years. It's just very cumbersome to query them, but it's also very nice to still have it whenever we need to, what happened 5 years ago, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So we still use both. They I maybe Alloy could send to CloudWatch, but we haven't looked into that yet.
Okay. And I don't see another hand, so I'll just try to cheat one more question in here. Um, how how close do you think we are to being able to use um, the CSOC admin for a full sort of production AWS deployment?
Um, with the whole Terraform thing?
Yeah, as far, I mean, like being able to use the, like, is that what we're working towards, or maybe you're already there? That's what I'm trying to clarify. Like,
Yeah.
can I can I use the admin, the CSOC admin app, this UI that you've created to
Mhm.
do a deployment in AWS?
You can,
Okay,
although with it, I would say it's in beta because we
okay,
don't use it ourselves, basically. But I can show you the UI for it real quick as well in whatever we deployed. So you can start with the single VM, but you should be able to bootstrap more clusters in other places. So if you go here, there's a Terraform new that I need to make better or nicer. But here you should be able to run this in a pod field. Yeah, I haven't tested the pod yet, but the Docker one I've tested extensively when I first set this up. This gives you a little bit of a UI and okay, and it's AWS only for now, but you can call your VPC things and you can select your region, although you said that's not fully tested and you actually need to test that. Select your availability zones and just give it some other basically required variables for the Terraform to go through. There are some optional ones as well. Um, but yeah, this should, in theory, like go in and deploy it for you. Okay, so this node doesn't have Docker installed, but basically runs it in Docker for you. Um, if it's helpful, this is something that I can prepare for uh, next workshop or something, where you start and you deploy it in a single node. So your CSOC is still here. Um, but then you can set up other clusters in AWS Cloud or even Google Cloud's Kubernetes engine, which I have really learned to love, called GKE Autopilot. Uh, so much easier to work with than EKS. But we could do this whole flow and make sure that we can bootstrap one or more Terraform deployments of clusters, basically. So then you can move this one or like one of the Gen3s into an AWS EKS cluster. Because I know a lot of the complexity when we're doing these multi-cloud deployments is honestly a lot of the time just working with Terraform and making sure things are working. So having the opinionated way of doing that, we can, if it's helpful for people, and it sounds like it is.
I like it. I'm ready. So I would upvote doing that. If not the next session, that some upcoming session to do that point deployment that you're showing on screen there. That'd be great.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can plan
Yeah,
for
we
that.
needed to decide on the next meeting, so that's good. Sorry we didn't get enough time to really brainstorm on this, but that's one good bit of feedback, Alan. Um, sorry, Jawad, do you have any final comments? I want to try to wrap it up so we
Um,
can be respectful of everybody's time.
I was pretty much done, so I can hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as I was saying, give us some ideas for next time. I did want to maybe the next meeting, I'll reserve some time more intentionally about like brainstorming for where this group could go, sort of after the CSOC, dashboard and everything is sort of finalized. So if you have any ideas for what that could look like, start thinking about that. And please send ideas for the next meeting. Does anybody have any closing words they want to share?
I would be very interested in seeing you guys' agentic coding environments, Kyle, if that would be cool to show, because that's something that we are also working on or working towards to set up here. If that's something that you'd like to share, that would be cool to see. And then maybe we can the CSOC portal itself is built in a mono repo. A little bit because of that reason, thinking ahead is having all that context readily available for agentic coding. And Go itself is just so nice to work with when it comes to agentic coding. So yeah, I don't know if that would be cool, Kyle.
Yeah, I could talk to some of the engineers on my software team, see if they have any thoughts or want to present on that.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh, there's a Gen3 community forum on July 15th, so don't forget about that. That is on security and compliance. So hopefully we'll see you all there. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jawad, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.